Good morning, everyone. Hey! That guy's crazy. Guillaume is crazy. We appreciate everything you do for the community, Guillaume. Thank you. Yeah, some setup here.
Do you hear what you need?
Yeah, that's our logo.
Yeah. That's what you need.
It's the wrong slides. Go to tab 1. All right. So my name is Rolf. I work on the content with Alex on Vue School and also with our other teachers. I'm also a full-stack developer and I work as a consultant from time to time. I'm a foodie. I started my web development career quite early. I was about 11 or 12. It was at the end of the PHP 3 era. So yeah, it's been a while now. And I built my first web shop and sold it when I was 15 years old.
Okay, I'm Kyriakidis. I'm originally from Greece, as you may notice from my popular accent, but now I live in Amsterdam for over a year. I run Vue School with Rolf, and I'm the main teacher at Vue School. I wrote the first book on Vue.js back in early 2016. It's called The Majesty of Vue.js, and I have contributed to Vue.js and the ecosystem over the years. Now I also work as a consultant at a company called RX Bandage, where we build a massive system for the medical industry in the United States using Vue.js and Nuxt. You can find me on Twitter, GitHub, and actually everywhere under Hoodflex.
Yeah, so we run Vue School together, where you can learn about Vue.js and related technologies through video courses. We launched just over a year ago, and we have over 200 lessons by now. And more than 47,000 users have already signed up. We teach Vue.js, modern JavaScript. We have some Nuxt courses that we do together with the core Nuxt team. And we have some courses on testing. We will have more on testing as well. Test your components, test Vuex, everything like that. And we do those with a guy called Roman Kuba, which is a lovely guy that will give us an amazing speech later today, I'm sure of. And yeah. We also do workshops. This is a picture of us from a lovely company in Sweden called Softhouse. Hey! And today we are here to talk about static site generation. So, like modern JavaScript frameworks and technologies, they have some side effects that we didn't have before. And one of them is the jumping content issue. Which is when a page layout changes or shifts unexpectedly when you try to interact with it. This happens like when AJAX parcels are loaded asynchronously, and as we all know, nothing waits for an AJAX request to finish. But when they do finish, the results are injected back into the document, back into the website, causing the website to dance around for us. It's commonly seen with images and with ads, but it happens, in reality, it happens with any content that is loaded after initial render. From a user's perspective, it's quite annoying. And if you're on a slow internet connection, you can even click the wrong link or button or article, and that's no fun. But fetching data, async data from APIs is common today, and it's necessary, so we can't move around that. This is a user experience issue. It's not the end of the world, but we have more serious side effects from the frameworks we use today. And the most serious side effect is that search engines, they struggle to index our JavaScript-powered websites today, or most of them, or many of them. Take a look at this markup. I will buy you a beer if you can tell me what this website is about. Anyone? So if we take a look at this static website, everyone in this room know that this website is about hamburgers. Joking. So if we compare single-page applications with static websites, the static sites, they are easier to index and crawl for the search engines because the hidden and visible content is available on initial render. Everything is ready for the crawler right off the bat. So search engines today, what they have to do is they have to load the content that is available on initial render, like they've always done. And then they need to do some checks to see if you run JavaScript. And if you do, they need to simulate a browser, run the JavaScript, and then index your website. As you can imagine, this requires significantly more computing power. And in fact, the Googlebot will defer indexing of your website, of your JavaScript-powered website, to when they have available resources to process the content. And this can take up to 1 week. So imagine that, like, almighty Google is putting us on hold until they have the capacity to index our websites. When I did some research for this presentation, I learned that Googlebot is using Chrome 41, which was released in 2015 and do not support ES6. For reference, I just updated to Chrome 72. So make no mistake, my friends, indexing JavaScript websites is not an easy task for crawlers. This index is quite serious, and lack of being indexed can make or break businesses today. So, what can we do? One thing we can do is server-side rendering. This is a very trending topic, and Guillaume gave an awesome presentation about this yesterday. So I'll just, like, in a nutshell, what that means is we will render our websites with components and assets and everything we need into HTML before it's sent to the browser. It's rendered on the server side. Server-side rendering solves the issues I just talked about. And it also increases performance. It increases performance because the servers, they usually have faster internet connections than the clients. So it's faster to fetch all of the resources that you need. And if you are a mobile user coming from a mobile device, the server also have more computing power to compile the JavaScript. So server-side rendering is awesome. It's great. But there's another technique we can use to solve the same problems. We can go completely static. Static websites, they do not need a server, which means that we can host them for free thanks to awesome services like GitHub and Netlify. So how does this work in practice? We cannot go back to creating our static files by hand like I did when I first started. There are tools involved. This is a screenshot from staticgen.com, which is a site about static site generators. This is the most popular ones right now. And maybe you heard about Jekyll and Gatsby, but today we're going to talk about Nuxt. We're going to do a demo about Nuxt, with Nuxt. Nuxt is a framework built on top of Vue.js, which is awesome. And the generators, how they work from a high-level perspective is that they will take a look at your config, parse your config, or your, like, imagine your routers, your route file. They will render your app, and then will store the output in static files, usually in a separate directory, which you serve to your users. So the cool thing about this is that we can actually keep our modern workflow with post-CSS, modules, transpilers, task runners, everything we're used to. Add the static site generator on top, and out in the other end, we will get the static version of that website. Static websites, they are not the new cool kid on the block that will obsolete dynamic apps. But they are awesome. And they help us solve some of the challenges we face today with modern front-end technologies and frameworks. We talked about the user experience. And even though search engines claims to be experts at parsing JavaScript sites, we know that we're taking a hit in that department. And besides that, pre-rendering our websites improves the crawling for social media channels, chat services, and those kind of services that will create like those rich sharing cards that we like. Nothing beats static sites when it comes to performance. They're fast, super fast. And when it comes to hosting, we can even host our websites on a CDN, on a content delivery network. Now, Imagine what that will do to your uptime, your availability, your user experience for international customers, if you have those. It's very easy to set up. It's very easy to manage and scale because you don't have to do anything. So you can lay on the beach and you can host in the cloud. Many articles and experts online today claim that static sites are more secure. And yeah, in some ways they are. But I find this topic very interesting because I believe that this statement is a bit glorified. There are less moving parts and dependencies, and maybe there is a serverless to maintain. But, a CDN will definitely handle the DDoS attacks for you, which is a very nice to have security perk for when you need it. But what about those rich static sites, those single-page applications that still needs an API or a server somewhere? So my question is this: do we really get rid of the security concerns, or do we just move them? Perfect use cases for static sites would be a business website, a blog or a portfolio where you write your content in Markdown files, or if you're making presidential campaigns. In fact, in the 2012 campaign for Barack Obama, they made an awesome website with Jekyll, which is a static site generator, and they broke many, many, many records. They had millions of hits, and they raised over, like, look at this big number, over $250 million with 0% downtime. Imagine that. They were accepting donations 100% of the time. That's impressive. No 99.999997% uptime, 100%. While the opposite party had troubles with their technical solutions and websites. So, static sites, static site generators, they are awesome. And now it's demo time. Alex will show us how to generate a static version of our Nuxt application.
Okay. Who has used Nuxt before? Well, that's many people. Who use Nuxt at your work? Okay. And who has heard about Nuxt and want to give it a shot?
More.
Okay. Okay, I hope to see more people by the end. So, to make it a bit more fun, I have prepared a website to work with. It's nothing fancy. It has 3 pages: the home, the about, and the contact page. And the code you see on the left, probably now, this is the default structure of a Nuxt application. When you scaffold the project with Nuxt, this is what you get. And now Nuxt will create a route and set you up for the components you put under the pages directory. So by having these 3 components here, we get the website that you see on the right. With not that theme, of course, but yeah, you get the idea. These components are nothing special. They are typical Vue components with a template and a script that we render in the browser. So if we deploy this application now without server-side rendering or without generating a static version, we will have all the drawbacks that Rolf talked about. So how can we generate a static version of this application? Who knows how to do that? OK. Are you guys speakers or something? Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. OK, Nuxt ships with a static site generator. So all we have to do is to run yarn generate. So now this will take a few seconds. And without providing any configuration to the application, this will figure out our pages, and it will generate the static files. So here you see that it generated the contact, the home page, and the about. By default, let's go big again. By default, the static files go into the dist directory. So here we have the index.html, which is our home page, and we have a directory for every other page. So here we have the about and the contact. Now, all these directories contain static index.html files that contain all the necessary information like the styling and the JavaScript, so they can be properly served in the browser. So if we open this file, for example, here, you see that the output is exactly the same with what we got when we served the page from our development server. OK, let's get to the presentation now. So once we have a way to generate the static pages, we're ready to deploy. And we can take the static files and upload them to a server if we have a reason to do that. But otherwise, we can take advantage of the many services that host static websites. I will show you how my favorite works, which is Netlify. That is great, free, and comes with a lovely UI. So the first thing you do is to create a new website, and you connect it with your repository. Once you do that, you are prompted to configure your deployments. So here we choose which branch we want to deploy, and we provide the build settings. For us, the build command is yarn generate, and the published directory is where our static file lives, so the dist directory. And once we do that, our website is live. Now, let me show you. So this is an iframe of the static nuxt.demo.netlify.com. And notice here that even though we are serving static files, here we have a single-page application. And how is that? That's because the page has been hydrated. Here I have a nice effect. Yeah. So this means that after the static pages are served, JavaScript takes over. So even if we disable JavaScript in our browser, our website will still work because it will fall back to serving static pages. And this is one of the beauties with static site generation. Now, it doesn't matter if you use Nuxt or if you deploy it to Netlify, because the process is about the same in almost all generators and hosting providers. As Rolf mentioned before, static apps are perfect for search engine optimization and meta tags. Here I have the contact page that has a template on top. And in Nuxt, we define the meta tags in the component's head method. So here I'm setting the window title here to contact us, and the meta tags for Twitter. Now, when we share this page on Twitter, it looks like that. And that's pretty cool for a JavaScript application, right? Now, at this point, you might be wondering what would happen if we had dynamic content. For instance, we could have a blog. So let's assume that we have a blog, and we serve the posts under this path. How can we make sure that Nuxt will find all our posts and that our app will do all the necessary API calls to fetch all the data before we create the static version? To solve that, we will use the special async data method that is provided by the Nuxt framework. Async data is called every time before loading the component. And unlike lifecycle hooks, the component will wait for the async data code to complete before moving forward. And the object you return here will be merged with a data object. So this will be merged with a data object. And in this example, the component has a data username. And in async data, I'm making a call to the posts endpoint, so I get all the posts, and I return them inside an object. Now, when we serve this component in the browser, its data looks like that. It has the original data, the username, and it also has a post property that includes 100 posts that were returned from the API. Now, in order to serve dynamic content, we need to have dynamic routes. To create dynamic routes in Nuxt, we create a directory with the name of the resource, and then we create a component that we name underscore, and the name of the parameter we want to get from the router. So to serve this path, /post/id, we create the post directory, and we create this component inside. Now, this is how the ID component looks like. It has a template on top that will display the post details. And let's take this screen. And in the async data, I'm fetching the the post from the API and return it inside an object. So this will be matched with the component's data. So we will have access to the post inside the component as this .post, both in the template and the script. So this way, in the head, we can define the window title to the title of the post, and we can also set the meta tags for Twitter. Now notice inside the sync data that I'm grabbing the ID from the params. And this is what the underscore trick did. Now this is how our blog looks like. When we visit a blog post, the component grabs the dynamic value from the URL, and we get to read the corresponding post. Notice here how the window title changes for every post. Now, by default, Nuxt will not generate static pages for dynamic routes. Though we can define these dynamic routes, inside the Nuxt config file, under the generate property, we can create an array and put our dynamic routes in there. And this is perfectly fine if we have a couple, like you can go and say posts 1, 2, 3. But if you have like hundreds of those, it's not fun to fill them manually. So unless you have a secretary, you can use a function. So here, using a function, I'm making a call to the post endpoint to get all the posts, and then I create a new array for every post ID. So then the routes will have all the available posts that we get from the API. Now, after we have done these configurations, we are ready to generate our static pages. When we run yarn generate now, we will get a ton of pages. Few seconds, yeah. And here you see we get all the posts, the home page, and yeah, the about somewhere. Now that this directory looks like that, it will have the posts, and inside posts we will have one subdirectory for every resource we got. And all these subdirectories will contain a single index.html file. Nuxt has done our code and has fetched the post that is now hard-coded in the HTML files. So you can see that the title here is hard-coded, the meta are hard-coded, and the content. So when the users now browse our blogs, there will be no Ajax calls taking place. And this is how the post 2 looks like in the browser. Now, bonus. Having a static application opens up many exciting possibilities. For instance, you can compile your application with a tool like Cordova and ship a cross-platform application that your users can install in their iOS, Android, and Windows devices. You could also create a blog that works offline. So you could compile all the content, like all your articles in an application, ship it to the app stores, and then when the users download and install your application, they will have access to all your content online. Though, in order to get new articles or updates, they will have to go in the App Store and update the application. And yeah, this might sound stupid, but it might be $1 million idea. Now, static site generation is awesome, but it might not be a good fit in some cases. So for example, it might not be a good fit when you have a large website with thousands of records, when the content is created by the users, when the data changes often, or where your application is heavily based on the data, like when you're building a dashboard or a CRM. What I showed you today is part of one of the courses we made together with the Nuxt team. And here is a photo of us working together in the lobby.
Yeah. So we believe that static site generation is awesome, but we do acknowledge that what we talk about today might be a bit challenging or weird to accept. But we really encourage you to think about it. And if you have a perfect use case, please explore the possibility. There are tons of generators out there for different frameworks and use cases. So yeah, do that. And before we leave, I want to shamelessly plug Vue School. We believe that education should be accessible, so we have priced our service quite reasonably. If you use this QR code or you visit vueschool.io/Amsterdam, you will get $20 off our yearly plan. Anyone? Any takers? Going once? Going twice? We've also provided the conference with the Vue.js crossword. How many of you have tried it? How many of you have solved it?
So people.
Okay, so if you scan this QR code, you will learn a lot about Vue.js, and you will learn what you need to solve the crossword. Yeah. Before I leave, I also want to thank everyone in this room for making the Vue.js community so awesome. I also want to thank our customers that allows us to do this for a living. It also allows us to support the future of Vue.js and Nuxt and open source. And if you or your company benefits from open source software, I highly encourage you to go out and back them as well. Even if it's just $1 or euro a month, it really makes a difference. And we can have more awesome tools. Thank you.
Thank you so much.